Welcome back to the Foundations of Learning podcast. I'm your host, Shaylee. Today I talk with Cheri, known as Raising Aspens and Arrows on Instagram. We are talking all about homeschooling and what it looks like for a mom that has a child that is struggling in school and decides to make the brave decision to pull her kids out of the public school system to help her son that was struggling in reading, the success that she has found in homeschooling. And so if you love the idea of an alternative option for your child in education, you are going to love this episode. Cheri is so fun to follow. So if you don't follow her, I have a link down below where you can go and follow her Instagram and learn so much from her because she is just a wealth of knowledge in the homeschooling space. Let's get started.
I felt like there had to be other moms out there who watched their kiddos slip through the academic cracks of the public school system. And I just felt called to share my story as to what it looked like when my kids were in school and what it looks like pulling them out. Because I felt like I was all alone. Like I was this mom who was reading to my kids, who were doing the fast facts, who were doing the homework. I would go and ask the teachers questions like, what more can I do? And they're like, no, your kid's great. Like you're doing everything right at home. But in reality, like they were slipping through the cracks. And um, so I started my Instagram page literally with like 200 people like a year and a half ago because I felt called that there must be other moms who feel alone. And I want to make sure they know that you're not alone. Like there's other parents like me who have who trust the system and trusted it with their kids, but still have seen it fail and then decide, hey, I think I can do better.
Parents do need that because you definitely, I remember even as an educator, right? Like I had some kids that were like homeschooled coming into the system, and I didn't understand homeschooling because I did not ever even think in a million years that I would be homeschooling my kids. Like I was
Yeah.
like, I'll just be a teacher for 35 years. Like my kids will go to the school I teach at, and that's
Yeah.
just what it's going to be. And then once I was an educator and I was seeing what was happening in the system, and I was like trying to do everything I could to make change in my classroom and realizing
Yeah.
that like no matter what I even did, I still had kids failing. I still had kids falling through the cracks. And then I would have kids
Mhm.
that would come in and they were like homeschooled, and sometimes they were super behind. And in my brain, I'm thinking to myself, like, what the heck are these parents doing? Why are these kids behind? But now that I
Mhm.
understand homeschooling and I'm thinking about like, and yes, everyone can have, failures and things that they try. And maybe they
Yeah.
just decided like, this isn't for us. Like, I need to send them back to school. And maybe they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing to help their kids succeed. But also in the homeschooling realm, when you understand it, it's like, actually, they don't like most homeschool families are not like, yeah, my kid is, they're a second grader, so they must meet second grade standards by the time that they are
Yeah.
at this age. Like most homeschoolers are trying to go at the pace of that child, right? And I
Yeah.
saw this in the school system, even like there were kids that just were not ready for the formal reading instruction that we were providing or the formal math instruction. Like they had other holes, they needed to move backwards, they needed to actually have the time in play in building oral language and all of this, all of these areas that they're not going to get in school, but we are just
Yeah.
forcing them to meet these goals and to like, you have to be at this stage by this age,
Yeah.
when we shouldn't be doing that. We should be doing, okay, what is your skill level? And then we should be teaching them based on their skill, not on
Yeah.
their age. And
Yeah.
so then the kids just start falling behind. But then of sometimes, not always, it's a very rare occurrence where you'll have a kid that's just struggling all throughout your year. And you're like, I don't know if they're getting it. You try to get them into like, special education or getting like extra work with people one-on-one. And it takes you all year to even convince them that potentially they maybe need some extra help or something has
Yeah.
to change. And then by the next year, it's like the next teacher is trying to do this and get them into, special ed or just getting them to work with aides one-on-one. And
Yeah.
then sometimes it just clicks. And all of a sudden it's like their brain was absorbing all of this information. It's just
Yeah.
that they couldn't apply it yet. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're applying it. And you're
Boom.
like, holy crap, like everything I was teaching you, it was like absorbing in. But you also have to have the continuation of like, teachers using similar methods. And anyways, it's just, I commend you for taking your kids out when you see that there is a problem, because I would have parents that, I was the honest teacher, and it was sad because I would have parents that would, say like, no one's ever told me my kid was struggling. They said they were fine or that they would
Yeah.
catch up. And I'm like, that's not the reality. Like, we're going to talk in reality here, and your kid
Yeah.
is behind, and I can only do so much in this classroom. And these are the
Yeah.
skills that your child needs. And I'm going to give you some resources to help you. And if you have questions, let me know. But like, you need to work with them one-on-one at their pace. And then hopefully
Yeah.
we can get them caught up. But this is just the
Yeah.
reality that they are behind. And I'm going to be honest, and I don't know that they're going to catch up unless you do something about it,
Yeah.
because it's just, that's reality. And I would have parents looking at me like, what? Like, this is like
Yeah.
news to me. Like, what's happening? And,
Yeah.
as a teacher, you feel like you're the most terrible teacher on the entire planet, because you're literally telling a parent that, like, I can't 100% help you. And so you feel like you're a bad teacher because you're like
Yeah.
not giving them what you want to give them, but in reality what it is, and that they're going to get maybe 15, 30 minutes in reality of what they actually need.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like these building blocks where, like, and I think every parent who pulls their kids from the system has a story, right? And I think for me, I guess if I wanted to share like a bit of my story, like my oldest had a speech delay when he was little, and we did early intervention, and then he went to school. And I always say at the kindergarten level, if you can't say a sound correctly, you can't segment it correctly. And if you can't segment it correctly, you can't write it correctly. And so what happens is now there's this little snowball, and he's just behind, and he's starting to be behind. And now they're teaching concepts, and the snowball's continuing to grow bigger and bigger and bigger as he progresses in the grades. And these foundational skills, which he should have got in kindergarten, first, second grade, there's holes in these blocks. It's like a tower, right? And so he's getting some of these blocks, but some of them he was down here, and they're teaching up here, and he's missing it. And so the snowball continued. And for us, it wasn't until fifth grade, like after COVID, I was like, there has to be something more going on. We're reading, we're doing everything right at home. We got him tested. But in the state of Utah, you can't diagnose kiddos with dyslexia. It's in the public school system. You have to have outside testing. And so
Oh,
on his
okay.
side,
I got you.
yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
No,
So,
you're good. I
like
was
in the
like,
public,
wait, what?
yeah, no, but you have to have outside testing for
Yeah.
that. So they
Yeah.
call it an unspecified learning disability. So
Hmm.
you're not letting the teacher know specifically, like, this is really what's going on. So they're generalized, right? And for us, he went into that middle school, and all throughout sixth grade, he would come home and he'd be like, I'm not learning anything in reading class. Mind you, middle school, he's switching classes, and I kind of took it as a grain of salt. He's 11 years old. I'm like, of course you're learning something in reading class. Like, but I went to open house, and I looked at their curriculum, and I asked all the right questions, and something just didn't fit. Something wasn't right. And so hindsight's 2020, right? And so at that moment, I kind of brushed it off. But that following June, I ran into a teacher at the library, and she's like, oh, that reading teacher got fired. So everything my son was telling me was right, and there was more to the story than what he even was presenting. And the other thing that broke the camel's back was I went to an IEP meeting, and the teachers are raving about my kid, about how kind he is and respectful, and he's trying really hard and he's doing his work. But they showed me his testing over the last 3 years, and it had flatlined. There was no academic growth for years, despite what we were doing at home and despite what they were doing in school. And I am kind of quiet. Like, and I'm not one to really stand up and kind of make a scene, but I took that paper and I was like, we're not concerned about this. Like, we're just going to brush this under the rug. Like, this is huge. And at that moment, I decided that I needed to step in and do something. And so I talked to the head of special ed. I said, I'm going to pull him for the last 2 or 3 periods of the day. We're going to go home, and we're going to do language arts, and we're going to do phonics and spelling. And I'm going to buy curriculum. And I didn't know what to do. I just know whatever I did was going to be better than what they were doing in school. And even if it was just an extra piece, extra practice, extra something. Um, and I remember the special ed teacher, we were the only ones in this classroom at the time. She's like, I think that would be the best decision. And so from that moment, I was like, that's it. Like next year, next school year, I'm going to pull everyone because this isn't working and I'm not going to keep on pretending it is. And so now we're just on our third year homeschooling and we have 5 kids. And so now we're doing ninth grade, seventh grade, fifth grade, second grade, and I have a 3-year-old. And
Oh
we're
my
doing it.
goodness.
And we're doing it well.
Yeah, I love that. I really do because I think, it's overwhelming for a
Yeah.
parent to one take their education, like their child's education into their own hands because if your kid continues to fail, now it's
Yeah.
not like you can point your finger and say it's the school system. You actually are like, okay, I have to figure this out. It's on me. Like I have
Yeah.
to make sure that my child succeeds. And I will say, if I was a betting person and I was like, okay, who is going to help their kid succeed more? A
Yeah.
teacher with an education degree with that student in the classroom, or a parent that is so dang determined that they are going to make sure that their kid succeeds and they have
Mhm.
no teaching degree. I'm going to put my bet on the parent because
Yeah.
you have a love for your kid that nobody else is going to have. They're not going to
Yeah.
just continue to get passed on to each new person. And, you do your very best as an educator, and special educators do their best. And everyone's
Yeah.
trying to do their best in this system that
Yeah.
is completely screwed up to help kids. Um,
Yeah.
but it's never going to be the same as a parent that is so determined because
Yeah.
you ultimately, parents, you don't want your kid to fail. Obviously, the teachers don't want your kid to fail either, but you know your child very best. You are the person that can work with them one on one at their pace with what they need. And you can educate yourself on anything that you need to educate yourself on because we
Yeah.
live in a beautiful day and age where you have the internet at your fingertips. You can ask ChatGPT if you want. You can go to Google. You can read a book. You can listen to a podcast. You can
Yeah.
do all of these things. You can take a course. You can do literally whatever you need to do
Everything.
to become an expert in whatever area your child needs. And the beautiful thing is, and this is the part that I think is kind of funny is like people will be like, oh, I can't teach my kid. And I'm like, okay, I do have a little bit of background in like, the science behind how we learn to read and math and
Yeah.
all of these different things. And you can learn that. But the reality is, as an educator, you get handed a curriculum. They
Yeah.
usually tell you you need to teach this to fidelity, which means I have to completely follow exactly what the curriculum says. And what do you do as a homeschool parent? You buy a curriculum, you implement it, and then you say, this isn't working. Why isn't this working? I'm going to dive deeper. What is it that my kid isn't getting, or why is it not working for my kid? And then maybe you change curriculums. And this is the part that gets really, really good with homeschoolers. You can change your curriculum whenever the heck you want. As an
Yeah.
educator, you have to teach a curriculum for 5 years because the district spent millions of dollars on it. And even if they
Yeah.
can see that the results suck, they're not going to change it because they spent millions of dollars. So now you are stuck with this curriculum. As an educator, you're trying to bring other supplements in to kind of supplement whatever the curriculum is doing. But at the end of the day, you have to follow the curriculum. And
Hmm.
so it's like this thing that I think parents don't quite understand, one, how the school system works, which I think is
Yeah.
so beautiful that homeschoolers are really sounding an alarm on how the school system works. And
Yeah.
what's ironic is a lot of homeschoolers are past educators.
Well, that's it. So I have my master's degree in education. And so I have an undergraduate degree in psychology, a master's in school counseling. And yeah, so I'm like, okay, I understand phonics and how to teach this and multisensory approach and how to just move at our child's level. Um, but yeah, like in here, it's 101. I don't have a classroom of 25 students or 30 or 40 kids. Like it's one on one. And what does that look like for even a typical kid? Like their math gets done so much faster, their language arts, they're reading one on one with the parent every day. And so we can make sure there's mastery going on instead of just jumping to the next step. and it's been amazing.
Yeah, so what has that looked like? Because I think a lot of parents get very overwhelmed. Like, I mean, they're overwhelmed even if it's just a regular kid that doesn't have really any learning disabilities, right? But you have a
Yeah.
son. Did he get diagnosed with dyslexia?
So what we ended up doing is in the state of Utah, there's dyslexia centers. And so we never actually got him diagnosed with dyslexia, but we went there and we had him tested. And they can show like it's probably like a 2 hour test, and they're like, okay, these are the holes. And see, from my observation and his test score is like he probably has dyslexia, but um we can't say for certain. Like there isn't a clinical diagnosis here, but we're gonna work with him. And so this woman who had 25 years of teaching kiddos with dyslexia is now working with my kid twice a week, one on one. And that's just like a piece of the puzzle that we've done. Um, and then she's given me ideas to do at home, and I've shared, our language arts curriculum and how we're approaching spelling and, reading comprehension. And it's been just a breath of fresh air. Um, and just his confidence has gone up. Like when he was in school, we don't talk about this often, is that kids who struggle in school, they come home and they just break sometimes and they just bawl and they cry because they're holding it all together in school. And so often my kiddo would be walking towards my car and he would just break down in tears. And he would tell me, he's like, Mom, why am I so stupid? Like, I can't believe it. Like, I'm so behind. I don't know why I'm so dumb. And it just breaks your heart as a parent. And day after day of seeing this, and it just does something. And I knew if I didn't take him out in sixth grade, what would this look like when he hit ninth grade or 10th grade? And we know the rate of depression and anxiety and all this mental health, it just catapults and it skyrockets in high school. I didn't want him to be a part of that statistic. And so, yes, there's this academic piece, but there's this mental health piece that coincides with it.
Yeah, I love what you said that you hired somebody out because that is one thing that, I talk about homeschooling or whatever, and oh my gosh, the commenters, I'm like, ugh, and it's usually TikTok. Like, I honestly hate TikTok. It is like the trash platform of all platforms. I'm like, every single person, I'm like, ugh, like, can you just scroll on because I just want to say some things to you, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to waste my energy. Don't waste your energy and time. But like,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
like, what happens when you are too stupid to teach them XYZ? And I'm like, well, first of all, I can learn anything. So now I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like determined. I'm like, well, now I'm going to teach my child calculus. You better watch out. Like I never understood calculus, but here we go.
Yeah,
But like you can hire it out. Like if you don't want to teach them calculus and that's what they're interested in, and they're at that point in math where,
yeah,
I mean, my personal opinion is that the kids really need like to be able to read and write fluently, and then they need to have at least the basics like up to algebra and like
yeah,
geometry, obviously. And then from there, like you can let them explore these other, I don't know what you'd call it, subjects in math. I don't even know what you'd call that.
yeah,
And you can hire it out. There are so many platforms that you can go to.
yeah,
You can go to OutSchool. You can go to, there's this new one called School. You can go to
yeah,
literally like just hire a tutor. Like it doesn't matter. You can have them go to a high school class in public school if you wanted to. They can
yeah,
take college courses if you want them to. Like it literally is just like however you want to do it. And so this
yeah,
one thing of like, oh, well, they won't learn XYZ because you don't have a certified person with a piece of paper teaching them this. And I'm like,
yeah,
well, really, I mean, we can outsource. You don't have to stay in the confines of what the public school is, or you don't have to teach it if you don't want to. There are so many
yeah.
wonderful platforms that we have and applications and like literally whatever you want to do.
The
And
world's at our fingertips when it comes to our children. And I
yeah,
think with COVID, I think you could see homeschooling just took off. It skyrocketed after COVID. And with that came the influx of opportunities. The classes that are out there, the amount of co-ops, and yet again, like you said, the amount of parents who stopped teaching to start homeschooling their kids. Now, those are the parents who are teaching the co-ops. And so I have kids, we'd have a co-op of probably 200 kids This semester, I have my kids taking, two of my kids are taking physics, a history class, a writing class. My daughter, who's 10, loves science. So she's taking a science class. But in addition, she's going probably 20 minutes away from here and she does a science class at a lab. And it's probably middle school, lower level high school science. She does dissection. She's doing microbiology this month. She's 10. Like she is in her element. And you can't tell me in fifth grade she'd be learning this in the classroom. And I love teachers and I will praise them up and down. And teachers are incredible. They're willing to fight for their kids and they love these kids in their classroom, but their hands are tied. Like you said, there you have to stick to the curriculum that they are given and you can deviate a little, but ultimately that's the road that you have to go on. And you have standards to meet and check marks to do and a test to prepare for all these kids, because that's how we know if they're succeeding or not. And when you can take those barriers off, then the world is at these kids' fingertips and it's beautiful.
Reading and writing are the cornerstones of your child's education. Without the right foundation, they can struggle, but with the right tools, they can soar. That's where the 5 Foundations of Reading e-course comes in. This course is designed to teach parents how to help their children master phonological awareness, which is the essential first step in literacy, phonics skills like decoding spelling patterns for fluent reading and writing, segmenting and blending, which are key strategies for becoming a confident reader, and orthographic mapping so that your child can learn spelling patterns and use them effectively. Last, you'll learn about high-frequency words, which are essential for fluency in everyday reading. You'll also learn the most effective ways to teach these skills, making learning time productive and enjoyable for both you and your child. Whether your child is ahead or catching up, this course equips you to support their journey to literacy success. Start today by visiting k3homeschoolfoundations.com or check out the link down below. Yeah, and that's one thing too. Like everyone always thinks I'm like counting teachers, but I never even talk about teachers. I'm just talking about the system and then they're lumping teachers into the system. And yes, they are a piece of the system. They are. But like you said, like I've worked with amazing humans that are educators. Like seriously, like educators really are the most selfless, warm-hearted, loving people that really just want to help. And they are killing themselves trying to help every student. Breaks their heart when they can't. And because they know, like in reality, like they're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing. Why isn't this working? But it's not because they suck as a teacher per se. It's probably more of the fact of how the system is set up. And like you said, it's so sad that kids don't have the opportunity to explore whatever their interests are, because you would have kids that are completely unmotivated in almost everything in school. But if you find something that they really, really want to learn about, like the possibilities are endless and they are going to be an expert in that area. Like I had a little boy one time that he was like so advanced. Like I was at a loss. This is one thing that we don't talk about often as well is, you have those kids that are behind and that's who you focus a lot of energy on. But those kiddos that are so far ahead that you're this kid came into my first grade class reading at like a almost third grade level. And he was so good at math. Like his math levels were like above a second grade. Like this kid was so smart. And he had some behaviors, but it was because he was so freaking bored. He was like,
because he was bored.
Yeah.
And he's 6 and he's little.
Yeah. And he's like, not, and I would tell him, I was like, listen, okay, I know this is really hard and that like this is so boring because you already know all of this, okay? But what I want you to do is I want you to help my friend over here on like sitting right next to you because he doesn't quite understand it yet. So you need to be his teacher and you're going to be his helper. And so when he's struggling during whole group time, like I want you to help him, And so he kind of like, I had him take on this like more leadership role of helping those that were behind. And he just soared in that. Like he was like, okay, I can do that, And so he was helping me essentially teach these other kids and they were, really like the kids loved it. They just thought it was great. And we always talked about what it meant to be like a kind helper and not to be rude and things like that. And he just was so sweet and he did it. But like when he was, he knew everything. about
Mm.
dinosaurs. Like,
Yep.
I don't even know. Like, he would tell me facts, and I'm like, that's probably accurate. Like, I have
Yeah.
no idea. And like, he just loved it. And he would read all of these books about it. He could tell you
Mm.
like each time period of each dinosaur and the dinosaurs that were alive and what they ate and all of the things. And I was like, that's super cool. But he could never really do anything with it. Like, he was obviously reading books about it, but like, there was nothing more that he could explore with that. Right. And so it was like
Mm.
me trying to like help him to, okay, you can do all of these things and let me try to challenge you as much as I can. Like, I was going to like third grade
Yeah.
classes and I was like, okay, what are we learning in third grade? I need to give him something, but like, I can't also just like
Yeah.
make him teach himself. And so it was like really hard. And so I would do things like passion projects and I'd be like, okay, I want you to like, so that I can start to teach him how to like read something, how to communicate it in a way like writing, or he could do like a little video about it or whatever, however he
Love
wanted to
it.
do it in that platform. Like, it doesn't matter, but you have to be able to coherently tell people about what you have read. And then you can like report it to the class and you can stand up in front of the class. Now we're talking public
Love that
speaking
idea.
and you can stand up and say, this is what I learned about the Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever, right? And so he would have to like create these passion projects. So he would get his work done in 2 seconds, but he still had to do it. That's the stupid thing about public school is like, I still had to have him do it, you know? And then he would get it done in 2 seconds. And I'm like, just work on your project. And that kid was so focused and I would be like, hey, it's time, we have to move on. He's like, no, you know, because he was like, I want to keep working on this. And he did so
That's
amazing. And then
beautiful.
all my other kids that were not as advanced as him in like these, you know,
Mhm.
academic ways, as far as
Yeah.
reading and writing and all that goes, they wanted to do passion projects. And then they were working really hard in their whole groups or in their independent work so that they could move on to their passion project. And then, you know,
I
they would
love
help each
it.
other. But that was like the closest I could get to like allowing kids to like get to their interest. But it was
Yeah.
only a tiny, tiny little piece of my day. And it just like killed me that I couldn't, within the confines of what the system is, allow them to, you know,
Explore that and give that piece so much more time and,
yes.
like, and think of all the skills you're teaching in those passion projects, like how to read, how to comprehend, how to maybe take notes, how to present the information. They could do art, like, just the list goes on, and these are critical skills for adulthood, for adolescence. Like, this is the meat and potatoes. Like, this is it. And they're excited, so they're digging in, and you don't have to force anyone to do their passion project because they're passionate about it. They wanna work on this. They wanna learn. That's beautiful.
And
Yeah,
that's where I think it's amazing because in homeschool, you can actually like let your kid just go with it, right?
yeah,
You obviously teach and it takes a little tiny time. We spend this
yeah,
much time trying to teach kids the skills they need, and homeschoolers can teach, you know, this much time, little
okay.
itty bitty,
Yeah,
because you're working one on one, you're working at their pace, you know exactly what they need, and they catch on
yeah,
really fast because it's one on
yeah,
one, because it's what they need and it's at their pace. And so you can
yeah,
spend this much time on like the actual, you know, foundational skills of reading, writing, math, and then you have
yeah,
the rest of the day where they can just go with whatever it is they want. And once they can
yeah.
read and write and do basic math, like you can literally do anything else, right?
You
I
can do
mean,
anything.
it's really not like, you know, you don't have to like go into this like crazy, you know, English class of like all this stuff. Like, as long as they can coherently write, coherently read, they can do their math and like do it
Yeah,
well, they can do anything. And so I
yeah,
think, and like I said, I wish that was how the system was, but it's not. And so in homeschooling, you can do that. And it's so, so beautiful. And you can
mhm.
have experts teach your kid. If you don't know what the heck you're talking about in microbiology, you know, it sounds like she is in a place
She's
where,
loving it.
yeah, they teach her what she needs to know in microbiology. And so I want to
Yeah,
kind of go into this little piece here because I also just got another comment and I was like, they were like, you have to make sure that your kids are surrounded by other people that have different ideas and beliefs and blah, 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 blah. And I really wanted to comment back and be like, dang it, I thought I could just tie my kids up in a basement and never
yeah,
ever let them see the light of day. Like, ah, man, you really
yeah.
spoiled my plans. And so I
I
want to,
know.
I want to talk a little bit about that. oh, socialization. Like, I hear they're going to be these crazy, super religious people that never
Yeah.
learn about anything but God and they're tied up in the basement. And I'm like,
Yeah.
first of all, why? Like, we should learn about God. Second of all, like, we can
Yeah.
learn about God and not be like a crazy person. Like,
A
that doesn't
crazy
equate.
person. Yes.
Exactly. And also, my kids are going to socialize. So, talk about what that looks like in homeschool so we can just squash the your kids are tied up in a basement theory.
So, and I think when we think of socialization in the public school, we think of 25 kids the same age in one room, right?
Mhm.
But in reality, in this world, we are constantly socializing with individuals who are older than us and younger than us. And that's the beauty of homeschooling. So my kids, I wish they were less socialized. The amount of classes they take and opportunities they have is incredible. So co-op, we have 200 kids aging in range from like little babies all the way up through 12th grade. So my kids are divided into classes, and it's like first through third grade will have a number of classes, four through six, and then middle school and high school are all together. So they're taking classes in group settings with kids about their age, but there's some diversity in that with kids younger and older. We do field trips, and so they're around all sorts of kids there. I have kids in choir and in orchestra, and I think those kids in those classes are from like ages 10 to 18, and so they're all at different musical levels, but they're learning together. So now my daughter, who's 10, is learning from the 12 or the 13-year-old sitting next to her, and she's learning how to talk to her and ask her questions and to form a conversation with her. I have my middle schooler, who's 12 currently, is in robotics, and there's a teen who oversees that group as well as two adults. So they're interacting not only with their peers, but with teens and adults. And so my kids are involved in a number of activities. And when we go to museums, my rule is you have to talk to the adults who work at the museum. You have to at least ask them two questions throughout the whole day. And so I have some kids who are really extroverted. And so that's easy for them to go up to the individual at the aquarium and ask about seahorses. But I have some kids who are more reserved. And you see that in the classroom as well, that's harder for them, but they're doing it. Now they're talking to these experts. And once that conversation starts, oftentimes it snowballs. And so now it's this back and forth conversation, and they feel more comfortable and they're asking more questions. But that's life. I'm preparing my kids for life. And it's not this sterile environment where they're only with kids their age. And so, yeah, these kids are way too socialized for me.
I told my husband that. I was like, honestly, our kids are probably going to be like the social butterflies. And I'm like the hermit that wants to stay on the couch under a blanket. They're going to be like, Mom, let's go and like go like play and whatever, like go into town. Cause
Yeah.
that's one thing like with where we're going to live, like we're going to have to really make an effort to go into town and whatever. My husband's like, the kids, like all of their friends are going to want to come to our house because our house is going to be like the cool house that like they can go do like so many fun things and we're gonna have 5 acres so they can go like run around, ride the four-wheelers on our property, like
Oh,
during
yeah.
this, winter time, like ride snowmobiles, like go sledding, like whatever. Like it's gonna be super fun. And because that's one fear I had. I was like, oh no, am I gonna be the mom that's like their kids are locked up in the basement over here? But no, like it really is true. Like I really do believe that majority of homeschoolers are way more social because when you actually in reality, like this is what
Yeah.
socialization is in school. You come in, you get to talk to your neighbor maybe for a second, usually not. It's come in, be quiet, do your morning work. Well, I'm
Yeah.
doing like homework checks and whatever, don't talk to your neighbor. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to go to whole group. Don't talk to your neighbor. Okay, now we're going to go to small group. Don't talk to your neighbor. Okay, now we're going to go. And then it's like, okay, we have 15 minutes of recess. You may talk to your neighbor. Like, you get what I like. There is
Yeah.
no actual socialization. And the fact that, like, you have to do so much problem solving and like teaching them how to problem solve because they don't have the other ages that are more mature, more able to emotionally regulate and to problem solve. So now it's like you have the adult trying to solve problems because XYZ happened and they're all at the same social emotional regulation level. They're all at the same developmental stage. And so then they don't know how to do it because they're all irrational in first grade, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not a
Yeah.
rational human yet. They're very emotional. They are still pretty impulsive. They don't know how to problem solve. They're still learning how to be social and like talk to a friend. And like, if they're, a little shy and they don't know how to go ask someone to play, like it's really hard. But like when you have the older kids, when you would have recess with like other kids and maybe they had siblings, it was really funny because the little kids would want to go play with the older kids and the older kids would be like, here, let me show you how we're playing this game. The older kids would actually help them to solve problems and work it out and be like, hey, that's not very
Yeah.
nice. Like, let's go invite so and so. They look bored or sad or whatever, right? Because they're
Yeah.
helping to do that. And then as the adult, you can just kind of sit back and watch, and the other kids are teaching each other, and it's
Yeah.
not as exhausting because recess time is the most exhausting time as a teacher. I'm just going to say it. It is because you are 110% just every second of that time trying to put out fires, trying to solve problems, trying to be like, hey,
Yeah.
so and so is kind of lonely. Should we go ask them to play? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just
Yeah.
exhausting. But like when people are like, oh, they're not going to get socialization, I'm like, what do you think they're getting in school? Because I urge you to just go sit down in a classroom all day and tell me, like, write down the times they actually get socialization.
Yeah. And these kids need it though. Like
hmm
they need to socialize with their peers and in conjunction to recess, like being able to move their body. And I think that's another thing that really stands out between public school and homeschooling is that when my kids get fidgety and they can go outside and they can jump on the trampoline and they can go for a walk or a bike ride and they can get that energy out and they can socialize with their siblings and um, I think we talk about little boys, especially kindergarten, first, second grade, who have a real difficulty sitting still and paying attention, but yet we're giving them 1 or 2 recesses at 15 minutes a pop. And is that enough for little boys? No, it's not. Like, or little girls. I mean, we can talk about that together, but kids need to move their bodies and learn how to interact with others. And socialization can't just be this like little snapshot of a 15-minute recess. It's so much bigger. So,
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of, it does prepare them for if you were to go to the workforce and let's say
yeah,
you were, you pretty much that's what you do. You go to work. You generally
yeah,
don't, you might talk to your coworkers here and there, but it's usually at little spurts, like 15-minute spurts where you get your break time or
yeah,
your lunch time. But for the most part, you're kind of just, doing your thing. Maybe you're working with some other people if you're doing a project together or something like that, but you're not really like, discussing normal day-to-day stuff and you don't really get time to move. You're usually sitting at a desk, you're staring at a computer
yeah,
screen or whatever it is, right? Like that's just what a normal workday is. So if, I feel like anyone can do that. You don't really need to learn to do that. You can just
yeah,
do it. It's not really something we like to do, but we do it because we kind of have to because we have to eat
yeah.
food and do all, whatever.
Mhm.
But it's something that like that truly is what the system is training is, okay, can
Yeah,
you come in? Can you complete a task? Can you do it accurately and efficiently? And can you at least get along somewhat with these people that we're requiring you to be around that you wouldn't be required to be around unless we told you have to be around them. And yeah, can you basically work a 9 to 5 job? That's
yeah.
basically what the school system is essentially training. And when you say that, a lot of people think you're crazy, but it's just the fact of the matter
It's
and
true.
how the system was designed. Like, yeah, that's what it was
Yeah,
designed for, and it hasn't changed. And there's
yeah,
people trying to change it, which is good. I don't know if you've heard of like the 2 hour learning school, like Alpha School or something, right? And they're
yeah,
trying to kind of like
yeah,
flip it on its head and try to kind of do what homeschoolers do, really, but
yeah.
just in using AI and then having a adult there that's like their guide. So it kind of
Yes,
helps them
I
as they,
follow that person.
yes, I'm like, this is honestly genius. I don't know exactly what uh, AI stuff they use. I've listened to a podcast. The girl, Mackenzie something, I can't remember her name now.
Can't remember her name,
Yeah,
but
she
yes, I
was
know exactly what you're talking
yes,
about.
she was
And so, and these kids are preparing, like they're being prepared, they're starting their own businesses, like they're taking on these big tasks, like as elementary, middle, even high schoolers, just and they're profiting, like they're successful businesses that they're creating. As you're talking through regarding the public school, have you heard of John Taylor Gatto?
Yes,
Yes.
I have read his book. I That was like my most awakening summer. And I started reading his book because my soul was dying. Like I was like, I can't do this. Like I would come home crying like almost every day to my husband. And I was like, something's just not right. Like I feel like I am killing these little human souls and their passions. And like, I just feel like I am an authoritarian figure that's just trying to
Yeah.
control their behavior at every waking second. My soul is dying. And I had an Instagram reel that popped up, and she was like, I'm an educator. I think every educator needs to read this book. It's called The Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto. And you really need to read it because it will help you to understand why our system was designed and all the stuff. And I started reading it that summer, and I was like,
Mm.
oh, this makes so much sense. Oh my gosh. And then I just started thinking about my training as an educator, and I was like, oh my gosh, like who were these theorists that they wanted me to learn about? Oh my,
Mhm.
whoa, these theorists are like darker than I even ever imagined. Like, wait, what
Yeah.
was the Prussian system? Like, wait, hold on. Like that book,
Yes.
honestly, it made me sick to my stomach. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
And I looked at my husband and I was like, I can't teach anymore. I can't do this. I just can't. Like,
Yeah.
our kids will not be going into this system. I cannot
Yeah.
be a part of this system. And I made a decision that I was going to start a business, and I was going to help parents to teach their child to read using structured literacy. And I
Love
was
it.
going to do a podcast, and I was going to just scream from the rooftops what this school
Yep.
system is really about, that you can do it without an education degree.
Yep.
And I just was like, I don't even know where this is going to go, if I'm going to succeed or not, but like, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom anyway, and I'm going to
Yep.
homeschool. And if the business succeeds, great. If it doesn't, like, I don't know, like, whatever. I can't, it's killing my soul, and I can't do it anymore. And
Yeah.
my husband was like, do it. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
Okay, here we go. And that's like me. I felt like I took this past year and I started to build this platform. And I do stuff with my kids all the time, just making learning multisensory. And my husband was like, "Why don't you sell some of the things you're creating? I mean, doctor them up, make them look pretty, but you could sell them on Teachers Pay Teachers and then share about what you're doing on your Instagram." And so I just recently started my website and I'm putting all my information on that. I mean, I'm going to do a blog and kind of talk about what we're doing here. And I'm not saying I'm doing everything perfectly, but yet again, just like you, I think we need to start shining the light as to what education can look like outside of the four walls of a classroom. And so, yeah, this is my year. I'm like, I'm pumped. I'm excited. Um, yeah, I think people are starting to get curious. Parents are asking questions. And it's people like you and I who are going to hopefully start generating more of this conversation around education.
Yeah, because it's kind of taboo. And I love that you are like because you do have resources that can be helpful for other people. Like, it's hard for
Yeah,
us to think to ourselves that, like, oh, like, I can provide value to someone with what I'm doing, but you found success in doing something, and you
yeah,
can share that, and somebody else will probably find success with what you're doing. And it is overwhelming, like
yeah,
I said, to, really to just jump out of the school system and be like, I'm going to homeschool my kids. It's like, where do
yeah,
I start? What do I do? Like, what paperwork do I have to fill out? Do I have to fill out
yeah,
paperwork? What does my state require? Like, there's so many questions. Like, how do I even pick a curriculum? Like, I don't know what a curriculum is. Like, how do I teach my kid to read? How do I teach math? Like, how am I going to frame my school, or not my school? How am I going to frame homeschooling at home, right? That may not
yeah,
look like school, because if you tried to implement school at home, you'd probably have a really miserable time, because I had to do school at a building, and it was really
yeah,
exhausting. And it's just like, and so I'm trying to deschool myself. Like, I have
yeah,
learned about all kinds of theories that I never have ever learned about in college, which I think is such a disservice, like unschooling
Yeah.
and Montessori and Charlotte Mason and classical and, all of these different theories or learning
Yeah.
theories, or I don't even know what you want to call them. And I'm like, okay, I have the information I have on how to teach kids to read, how to teach math, like all of this stuff that I did find some success in. And then I have like how I taught school, which I don't want to do at all. And then I have all of these other theories. And so I think it's important to like have somebody that's done it, that's gone through all of this, that's taken their
Yeah.
kids out of the system, was just like, we're going to figure this out. And you do have a little bit of information, obviously, with having an education degree, right? So you do get some good information with that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of take some of it, let go of some of it. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
I am just following every homeschool account I possibly can that's doing it, however they're doing it, because
Yeah.
I have to unlearn a lot of things if I'm going to be
Yeah.
successful, because I know if I tried to do school at home, we're all going to be miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think just taking little bits and pieces. I know for me, it's like I'm still sometimes stuck in that box of like, okay, get your curriculum done, all the core stuff. Like, have you done this? Have you done this? And but then there's a part of me that's like, we need to go for a nature walk. Like, what does it look to like have a nature journal and to talk about the birds and the trees and the plants and yeah, and like music. Like we just got a drum set and a guitar and we have a keyboard. And so I tell my kids, I'm like, go play music. Even if it's like 10 or 15 minutes, we have some incredible apps on our iPads that are just fabulous. And so they play the piano and drums and the strumming on the guitar, and it's loud and it's busy, but it's beautiful too, And I think because that's learning too. You're reading notes and you're gaining confidence and you're failing and then having to stand back up and try it again time after time. And so we're building resilience. And then they're proud when they can master a song or they learn, I don't know, a new thing on the drums. And I just think for me, I'm just taking a little bit. And I tell my older kids, I'm like, I'm getting better every year. Like, I'll be better next year than I am today. But it's a constant, loop in progress. And we just do our best. And hopefully, in 10, 15 years, when all these kids graduate, they can look back and be like, okay, like I had a really great education and a really good childhood.
Help your child become a confident reader with letters and sounds. This structured curriculum includes lesson plans, games, and multisensory activities to make learning letters fun and effective. Get started today at k3homeschoolfoundations.com or check out the link down below. Parents, have you ever wondered what your kids are really learning about important topics like taxes, freedom, and responsibility? As an educator, I once had to teach a social studies lesson that only focused on the positives of taxes, completely ignoring the downsides of over taxation or the importance of personal responsibility. It made me realize how limited the perspective is in many traditional curricula. That's why I'm so passionate about the Tuttle Twins books. These books teach kids both sides of important issues like economics, freedom, and entrepreneurship in a way that's fun, engaging, and easy to understand. They help children think critically and understand the world in a more balanced way. If you're ready to check it out, use my link down below to explore their incredible resources, give your kids the tools to think for themselves, and support my podcast. Yeah, and it's funny because I think that the school system has kind of separated parenting and education and learning. Like they've put it into these like different categories. And I would even say that our education system is not even true learning. When you look at how you learn as an adult, like if you just sat
Yeah.
down and you thought about it, how do I learn? It's
Yeah.
probably not going to look like what the school system is doing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to look at parenting and like, what is parenting really? And then you're going to
Mm.
look at, learning and parenting. And it's like, really, when you look at the family system, it just is honestly something that I think is so natural that happens,
Hmm.
because you're learning together. You know each other best. You are, like parenting is teaching. That really is what it
Yeah.
is. And so when you take that piece and it's like, okay, now you're just going to teach them a skill. you're
Yeah.
teaching them skills throughout their entire life. You're teaching them
Yeah.
how to tie their shoes, how to ride a bike, how to drive. You're teaching them how to cook. You're teaching them how to run a household. Maybe you're teaching them how to run a business because you run a business, or maybe you're teaching
Yeah.
them, how to, I don't know, like so many things, right? You're teaching them
Yeah.
all of the time, and they're
All
learning
the
all of
time.
the time. So now it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, now I just have to give them the foundational skills, and I'm just going to do the same thing that I do as a parent. I just
Yeah.
I'm going to teach them how to read and write and do math. And then from there, we
Yeah.
might read some books about history, and, maybe they explore science and music and all of these things, art. But I just feel like it's so cohesive and natural if you look
Yeah.
at it as parenting. Like that's just what
Yeah.
it is, really.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, I don't know. I was trying to think like, I don't know if they made a thought.
I do that all the
uh,
time. When I was
uh,
pregnant and podcasting, it was like the worst thing on the entire planet because I would have the worst pregnancy brain, and I would like stop mid sentence and I'm like, uh, hold on a second. Hold on. Pregnancy brain. Hold on. What were we talking about?
processing, processing,
Like
processing.
it was really
Yeah.
bad. Pregnancy brain got me so good. So,
Oh, no. Well, the other day, my 8-year-old was cooking like grilled cheese, and my older kid was making homemade mac and cheese on the stove. And I'm like, these are essential skills. Like, when was the last time I ever made homemade mac and cheese with like the milk and the butter and the flour and the cheese and the noodles and like that's a skill. Like now, and even an 8-year-old cooking grilled cheese and pancakes and French toast and sausages and flipping a hamburger, like with the help, like outside on a grill, like, but this is learning too. And I
100%.
think today we are so focused on screens, and we could even talk about screens in the classroom and screens at home. And so these kids are just so bombarded with this. What does it look like to be able to balance screens? Because I think, they're in our culture, in our world, but to be able to like teach without a screen in these kids' faces. Having a book to read and a textbook for my high schooler to flip through and take notes and underline. And, we're reading The Hobbit right now, and we have a beautiful book, and like there's, it's illustrated, and we're talking about vocabulary words, and we can underline the word. But I think so much in the classroom, we give Chromebooks to kindergartners now. That's our norm. And so what does it look like when we can kind of find this balance between screens and using them when they're helpful, but also like there's something beautiful about pen to paper.
Oh, yeah. And there's so much science behind, like actual neuroscience behind actually using a pencil or a pen on paper and not even a whiteboard. Like, especially like if you want to talk about like dyslexia, like those
Yeah.
kids have to have that sensory input, and they like kids writing on a whiteboard with a marker is actually not even close to as good at what it's going to do in our brain than if you got a pencil and a piece of paper, because of like the grittiness of the lead and the pencil and like the way that it feels in their hand when they're writing. And so I think it is such a disservice when we are like, I've seen so many, and I think like you said, it's a balance. I've seen so many literacy apps, but they're like having them write with like a stylus on an iPad, and I'm just like,
Mm,
no, like, I don't love it,
no.
and then even just like,
Yes.
they've done research on like reading on a screen versus like reading an actual book, like a page on a book, and what it
Yeah.
does in our brain, and like the dopamine hits, and like the just like how we retain it. Like it's so wild when you actually start to look into the research on it, and you're like, whoa, like actually we do need to have some sort of balance. And like you said, in schools, we like, this is the sad reality, and I'm like, it's kind of backwards a little bit. I think Title I schools are going to be more likely to have more technology. Everyone wants to say that, and I worked in Title I schools. Everyone wants to say that the Title I
Yeah.
schools and the poor kids don't get any money, and that's why they're failing. And I'm like, well, no, it's actually like way bigger than money. But anyways, that's a
Yeah.
different rabbit hole. But
Yeah.
every Title I school I've ever worked at has had a one-to-one device, and it usually starts in kindergarten, and they have an iPad. So you usually have iPads, depending on the school, but you will have iPads for like kindergartners and first graders. And then from second and on, they have Chromebooks, and they do everything on
Yeah.
these, especially Chromebooks. Like once you hit second grade, like you are typing stuff up on the computer, you're reading stuff on the computer, you're doing literally everything on the computer. And I'm like, what are we doing? And like these are the low income kids, the, disadvantaged kids usually that are coming from a background that they are having less conversation with their parents. They don't get read to as often. They're just not getting as much attention, unfortunately. And I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, we could go down in a serious rabbit hole
A
there,
whole rabbit hole. Yeah.
we're not going to go down that. But like these kids are the kids that need the play. They need the oral language. They need to be read to. They need to have the actual like writing with a pencil and a paper and reading actual physical books. Like we need to make sure that we are not just completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because those things are so essential and so needed. And I get what they're trying to do. Like they're trying to create like AI, and like we're going to have AI teach so that we can try to like, bring kids, bridge the gap and blah, 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 blah. But I've seen the way that we use technology in schools, and it's not very effective, and it's not very efficient, and it's not the way
Yeah.
that we need to do it. And it's like overtaking what we should be doing, which is so sad.
Well, and one thing that really opened my eyes when my oldest was in the public school system was that he would have math tests online, and he would have to like write in like 1 3/4. Like, so math tests where it should be paper and pencil and you're solving out the problem and there's multiple steps to it. Now you're on a screen. And I'm like, wait, hold up. And I remember talking to the teacher being like, so now you're not only testing their math skills, you're testing how well can they input the data and like make it look how it's supposed to look so they get the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And during COVID, I remember being like, this is the right answer. But I, as an adult, was inputting it incorrectly. And so it was like incorrect. And I'm like, that just adds another whole layer. Like like you said, we're trying to jump and like make technology this ultimate source. It's like, no, we got to go back to the basics, people. Like kids need to know how to write on paper and how to solve problems. Um, I don't know. That's another whole conversation.
I know, like when you talk about education and learning in the school system and homeschooling, like there are so many little rabbit holes or just different things avenues that you can go down, because when you really think about education, it kind of comes back to like what we just talked about, right? Like it is life. Learning and
Yeah.
education is life. And
Yeah.
we have essentially, with the education system, we have turned it into something completely different. It's not life.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we go to this place, we learn these skills, which some of which I think are just not even necessary. But anyways, as you get into high school, but anyway, but you have like these skills that you go to a building, you learn these skills, and then you go home, and then you do a little bit of life. And really, education and learning is life, and
Yeah.
that's just the reality of it. I mean, I hated learning, hated school. Okay. I mean, I have a
Mm.
master's as well in education, and I only got it because I was like, well, if I get my master's, I'll get paid like $4,000 more a year. Let's do it. So I like got it done
Yeah.
in like 6 months online. I was like, I just want to get it over with, get it done.
Yeah.
And I like was like, I am never ever learning or doing anything ever again, because I just hate it. It's the worst. But as I, graduated, wasn't in college anymore, and I was just a teacher and whatever, I
Mhm.
found myself going back to like learning. I was reading books about like literacy and math, and because I wanted to help my students. And then I was just
Yeah.
reading books about history and like all things. I hated history in school, hated it. It was like
Yeah.
the worst topic ever. Like my husband, he loves finance stuff. And I, for a second, was
Yeah.
like, oh, but now I realize, holy cow, like everything comes back to economics. Like it's just crazy. Anyways,
Yeah.
but like just the way that you learn as an adult, once you realize and you step out of that system, you're like, well, I'm just learning all the time. I'm reading books all the time. I'm listening to podcasts all the time. I'm getting new ideas. I'm, sitting with them. I'm discussing these ideas with my husband, or I'm discussing it with other people, and really just like, the way that we learn is life. And
Yeah.
we take that part out in school, which is such a disservice. And so I love that you are on a mission to really show people that homeschooling is possible, and even homeschooling with, a child that may be struggling with these things.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he is just soaring, which I love. Like, I
Yeah.
love this story. Like, it is just, it makes my heart as a teacher happy, because if a parent would
Mm,
have come to me and been like, what should I do? I think I'm going to take him out of the school system. I'd be like,
yeah.
yes, do that, do that, do that. Like,
Yeah.
I would be your first
Yeah.
cheerleader, and there's a lot of teachers that they don't, because they don't understand homeschooling, and it's not to the fault
Yeah.
of them. It's not like they don't want this kid to succeed, but what they think of homeschooling, what they see of homeschooling, they're like, you can't do that. Like, it's not possible to do that. You don't have the right credentials. You will screw this up. That's kind of the thought
Yeah.
process, just in being an
Yeah.
educator and being in the system. And so,
Yeah.
I don't know that many parents even have somebody that's even an educator that's like, look, if it's possible, I think you might want to homeschool. Like, there's not,
Yeah.
it's going to be very few and far between that you're
Yeah.
gonna have a teacher that's gonna really like cheer you on in that. And so people need
Mhm.
communities. They need people like you that are like, hey,
Thank you.
I did it. I jumped out, and like, look, we're thriving. Like, you can do
Yeah.
it too. You don't have to be like some person with a piece of paper. Like, it is possible, and it might be
Yeah.
chaotic. It might be something that you are constantly learning. Not might, it will be something that you're
It will
constantly
be.
learning,
Yeah.
and adapting, and you're doing it as a family, and you all love each other, and you all want what's
Mm.
best for each other, which is wonderful. And so I really think that you are doing God's work in helping others
Thank
realize
you.
that they can flip the tables. Okay. That is like
Yes.
my favorite part of Jesus. Okay. I have the
Yes.
flipping tables energy of Jesus, and I tried to be the
Yes.
other parts of Jesus, and I really struggle with that. But I'm really good at the flipping tables, Jesus.
Yes, me too. I feel like I can make some spicy reels and spicy posts that get people really thinking, and maybe sometimes they get a little angry at me. But I think when our focus on education is to get our kids to love to learn and love to read,
Hmm.
rather than the focus of getting a test score on a state test, we're flipping the tables because my kid is going to learn a lot more when they're excited to dive into history and to science and to read those books. It's just going to perpetuate itself. I don't have to do as much work, and I don't have to convince them to learn if they're already on fire for it.
Exactly. So yeah, just keep flipping those tables. I love your spicy posts. I'm like, yes, this is the energy that I like. Yes. Like, I think
Yes.
it's the best ever. And so I just think it's so important that we have these conversations, that there's people out there that are doing the thing, so that we
Yeah.
have proof that, like, look, you can do this. Like, it's not, and there's
Yeah.
no one way to do it. Like, that is the real, I think, myth about it, is that like people think that there's like one way to do it. And then people also see these like Pinterest vibe, like homeschooling accounts, and they're like, I am like frolicking through the meadows, and like, look at my
And everything is
schoolhouse, and
perfect.
yeah, everything's perfect, and everyone's like just sitting down and doing their work, and I asked them one time, and we all love it, and it's fantastic, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, yes, you're gonna have moments of that, but it's parenting. Again, like I said, it's parenting,
Yes.
it's life, it's messy, it's chaotic, it's, there's going to be times where kids are like, I'm done. And this is also the beautiful thing. Like you said, you have a kid that's like just done. Like, it's a day that they're having a bad
Yeah.
mood, and they need a reset. And you
Yeah.
can just be like, you know what? We're just not going to do a reading lesson right now. You go and
Yeah.
I know you love to play on those drums. You go get your energy out on those drums and have a good old time. And when you're
Yeah.
ready, come back and we're going to do it. And then you can work with another kid at that time, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just this
Absolutely.
beautiful, like,
Like ebb and flow.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
I just love it, and I'm just so excited
thank
for your
you.
journey and your website and your blog. And like I said, I don't know if you can subscribe. I'll be subscribing, because like
Yes.
I said,
Thank
I
you.
need to get as much information as I can, because my daughter's only 9 months old. But before I know it, she's gonna be at a
She's
time
gonna be
where
so
I'm gonna
big.
have to teach her things. No, I'm just kidding. Like, actual, like, we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna homeschool. And so,
And you'll
um,
do it, and you have all this knowledge, but you have a light and you're shining it by doing these podcasts and by building your Instagram and building all your different platforms. And I think as we continue to shine our own lights and tell our own story, that's how people are going to get educated and get curious and start asking the right questions.
for sure. Well, this has been such a great conversation, and I'm really sorry that I went like so over. I could talk to you for like 5 hours.
I could
I
too. This
usually try to like be considerate of people's time, and I like block out an hour, and then I was like,
Yeah,
holy crap, we've been talking for like an hour and 20 minutes. But,
I love it.
but I've just loved this conversation, and maybe I'll have you on again sometime, and we can talk about where you're at, like, like his journey in 2026 and
Yeah.
what you have for people to, do you have a teachers pay teachers then?
So I'm gonna start one, and
Okay.
so I'm working on it. This is my year. I'm like building it all out, and I'm gonna start posting stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers. But if people are interested, just follow along on my Instagram. I'm raising aspens and arrows, and I'll just post everything there. And just it's a journey. I'm learning, and so as I continue to learn, hopefully it just continues to evolve.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an update. Literacy is the foundation of learning, and every child deserves the tools to succeed. If you're ready to take the next step in your child's education, check out my website at k3homeschoolfoundations.com for resources, curriculum, and support to make literacy simple and effective.